Starting on a game like Street Fighter where the neutral is traditionally slower poses kind of a problem whenever you want to transition to faster game. And for me, that's made a big difference. Like playing Guilty Gear, playing BlazBlue, Central Fiction with the rollback update and all that. Trying to get used to the tempo and how fast you have to play and react to things is hard. And trying to react to like high-low mix-ups and people resetting their block strings. Like Dbfz also is a very fast-paced game in my opinion. And having to react to people doing like 15 move long block strings and then canceling it into whatever assist, then doing it again, then canceling it and maybe hitting you with the overhead or mixing you up. Having to react to all of that stuff very quickly is hard. It's hard in general, but it's also hard when you're not used to playing that fast. And it kind of causes you to panic sometimes because you see people just running at you, especially in Guilty Gear where there's run momentum. So people are running and just sort of like throwing themselves at you at times. It almost feels like they're throwing themselves at you with a button. Like Giovanna can do a dash with a button and she kind of skids across the screen with like a big button sticking out. And you want to react to it, but sometimes you get counter hit because you mistime it or you're just not ready for it. So by the time you press your button to try and stop that, you just get counter hit. Things like checking dashes and trying to tech throws start to feel more preemptive. And that might be incorrect to you guys who play anime games in the comments. Let me know if that sounds correct. But to me, it feels like when you play a game that quick, like a game that has a very high tempo in neutral, things start to become more preemptive than reactionary, right? Especially so in Guilty Gear Strive, because if you try to take a throw reactionary and then you mistime it, you get counter hit and you'll fucking die because you take half HP from anything you get hit by counter hit in that game. Sometimes even normal hit, you'll die, you'll take half HP. You play a very dangerous game when you're playing Strive and you try to start doing things on reaction, it feels like. As far as checking dashes and doing throws, I guess trying to do things on reaction that get you counter hit feels very dangerous. Now, if you're a Street Fighter player and this sounds like I'm trying to discourage you from not playing Street Fighter, it's not the case. It is very possible for you to transition from 5 to like Guilty Gear. You just have to get used to it. You have to realize that the things that you're doing, you need to be doing 1.5 times faster, or you just need to be paying a little bit more attention. Because of the nature of those anime games where things happen so quickly, your defense can't be as passive as it is in Street Fighter 5, where a block string is 3 moves long. You say, oh, he's doing this block string, I'll block it out, then I'll press my button because it's definitely my turn. In anime games, it doesn't feel like that. In anime games, you need to actively be defending and looking for people like red RCing or like canceling into assist or maybe trying to do overhead mix-up, because some of those games, like in Dbfz, you can combo off of an overhead. It's not as simple as just holding down back, blocking a few buttons in a block string like in Street Fighter 5, and then taking your turn back. Sometimes you really need to be paying attention on defense. And then you even have to factor in like the universal mechanics of the game that you're playing. Some universal mechanics are insanely complex. Like at a moment's glance, the RC system in Strive looks pretty simple, right? I think there's 4 different Roman cancels. But when you start getting into like the complexity of like putting them into combos, like using them to punish, or RC drifting up and down and fucking left, right, center, you start to realize that the game is not as simple as people were saying when it came out, or that some people complain about. I will agree with you that the damage is ridiculous, and that can make it feel simple because somebody hits you with the bread and butter and you take half HP. But when you start watching high-level players using these different universal mechanics like Gold Burst or just normal burst or all the different RCs, you really start to see the complexity and the application of these different systems. If you're a Street Fighter player watching this, you have to remember that in these games, you can block in the air, you can air dash, you can double jump, you can super jump. That adds a whole different layer of complexity to the gameplay vertically that we are not used to playing Street Fighter. We can't block in the air. We're not used to somebody IADing in and then blocking our DP in the air and then us getting punished for it. If you see somebody jump in Street Fighter, usually you're ready to anti-air, but that's not always the case in anime games. Sometimes you can get baited by that. And on the flip side, you have to be ready to use those different air mechanics to either get out of a corner or get out of a certain situation or get in. So many more movement options in a lot of anime games. Melty Blood especially. Melty Blood is a very movement heavy game. It's why I was so trash at it when you guys were watching me learn it. Nothing I learned in Street Fighter felt like it had carried over because movement was the basis of that game. To be a very good Melty Blood player, you have to have pretty good movement. You have to be very comfortable in the air and moving around and air dashing and super jumping and really getting in on your opponent. It also didn't help that I played Alco and she had like more movement options than usual. So when people ask what fighting game they should start with, the answer will always be one that you think is cool, because you'll learn something different in every other fighting game, but at some point you'll learn what you need to know to play the game that you love. No matter what game you start with, when you switch to like an anime game, you'll have a couple roadblocks. If you switch from an anime game to Street Fighter, you'll have a couple roadblocks. It doesn't matter where you start. And whatever medium you feel you need to use to do that, whether it's Street Fighter or Grand Blue or Tekken or Ultra Fight Decanta, I don't care. At the end of the day, you will always stick with a game that you like playing more than a game that you feel you should be playing. And you'll come out the better player in the end. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider subscribing. I'll talk to you again soon.